And hello, one and all, and welcome to my thoughts on last night's Shane McMahon, Mick Foley podcast, which aired immediately following the May 23rd edition of Monday Night Raw. The overall podcast was an hour in length, and I thought Mick Foley did a suitable job filling in as the replacement host in lieu of Stone Cold Steve Austin being out with a shoulder injury and his recent surgery. So props to Mick Foley. I thought he carried the interview well. He asked a number of important questions that we would want to hear answers about. That Shane was very open to discussing any and all topics presented to him. He talked a lot about his relationship with his father, how his life growing up as Vince McMahon's son at an early age, told a number of funny stories, such as the time that he infamously pushed Vince into his swimming pool and Vince was seething with rage, and then Shane said, "I gotta go." So that was funny to hear Shane talking about what life was like growing up, how he worked his way up in the business of professional wrestling, how he started out as a referee, learned the ins and out of the business, and eventually became a competitor in the business and had a number of great matches throughout his career. Shane discussed how, Mick Foley brought up and asked, why did you leave in, I believe it was 2009, why you chose to leave WWE, and Shane said it had not become a fun environment to work in anymore. It was really hurting the relationship between him and his father, so Shane did it. Chose to leave to prove that he could make it on his own. He wanted to try his own things without having to butt heads with Vince. And Vince, he said when he said this news to his father, there was a range of different emotions. He was happy, sad, upset. So it was very interesting to get to understand, why exactly Shane McMahon left WWE for 7 years to work on his company in China. So it was very interesting to get, specifically his perspective. I thought his answer made a ton of sense. It's very stressful working for Vince McMahon, let alone being his own son. And Shane talked about the high levels of expectations that Vince places upon his children, Shane and Stephanie. And, Shane and Vince seems to have a very strong father-son relationship. So in order to preserve that relationship in the long run, Shane made the decision to go and branch out and do his own things. But he maintained in the podcast that he would always be willing to come back when the time was right. And there was a call made 3 weeks before his return in Detroit. It was made by Vince, and he also got a phone call from The Undertaker, which laid out the scenario for Shane to make his long-awaited return on the February 22nd edition of Raw in Detroit. And yes, it was the February 22nd edition of Raw. Shane made his return to a huge reaction. Shane said he didn't expect a reaction of that type. Watching that live, I was blown away with how nuts the place went, and it was surreal. Shane said the main reason why he came back was to perform in front of his children, because his children never seen him wrestle in a ring. They were too young at the time. When Shane was competing in his multitude of matches that he had against guys like, Kurt Angle and, Vince and X-Pac and what have you. So it was important for Shane to come back to perform in the ring, especially on the grandest stage of them all, one of the biggest WrestleManias of all time in front of 101,000 people. He said that was so surreal, and to have his kids, walk to the ring with him was something that, was one of the greatest moments, he said, in his life. So that was good to hear, And then Foley brought up the fact that they talked about the decision for Shane to jump off the Hell in a Cell, that amazing spot. And Foley made the good point that the cell that Foley was thrown off of was nearly not as high as the one that Shane jumped off of. And Foley asked him, is it something you felt you needed to do, or you wanted to do. And Shane said it was both. He wanted to do that, and he needed to do it because Shane admits he's an adrenaline junkie. He's willing to take the risks, that no one else is willing to take. And he admitted that when they brought up this scenario, Shane jumping off the cage, he was really the only one in favor of it. Everybody else was totally against it. But Shane went with his heart, and he did that incredible spot, which will live on in infamy in WrestleMania and WWE history overall. So it was great getting that insight. Mick Foley also brought up questions saying, how is your relationship with your sister Stephanie? He said it's good. There's no issues. Apparently, this is what Shane said, between him and Triple H. He said nothing's changed there. So we take him at his word for that. Mick Foley said he accepted the answer, and then Shane said, well, that's the answer, and that's what it's going to be. On his thoughts on him and Triple H, there was rumored to be backstage animosity heat between Shane and Triple H, how you don't really see them together backstage, hanging out or whatnot. Maybe there would be some contention with Shane returning after a long absence, and how Triple H kind of essentially married into the family and is now in a prime spot to take over in a major position of power with WWE. Shane really didn't show any hints of animosity towards that, but maybe there's more to the story than he let on, but we take his answer for what it is. So like I said, all in all, this was a good 1 hour podcast. It would have been better if Stone Cold was hosting it, but like I said, I thought Mick Foley did an admirable job. So if you have the network, definitely check it out. Give this podcast a listen. It's great hearing from Shane O'Mac. Like I said, it's great to have him back on a weekly basis on WWE TV for the foreseeable future. And yeah, it was just more insight into the man himself. So good stuff all around. Check it out. Just wanted to make this quick video, giving my thoughts on it. And yeah, guys, I will see you in my next video later on sometime this week. So until then, take care. Peace.